In today's lesson, we're looking at as expressions like as blind as a bat. Hello and welcome to another video. My name's Alex. In today's lesson, we're going to look at 10 different as expressions in English. The example I gave you at the beginning is as blind as a bat. So often in these expressions, we don't need to know what the second part means because it's actually the first part that tells us the meaning. So if you didn't know what a bat was, for example, you could still figure out what the expression as blind as a bat actually means. It means that they're really blind, they can't see very well. All of these expressions are quite informal and colloquial and are very often used in a funny way. The structure of these, as we can see, is as, adjective, as, noun. So we see as blind as a bat, and all of the other expressions we're going to look at today follow this same structure as well. So let's dive into them and look at the next one. So this expression is as thin as a rake. Now we can understand this expression without knowing what a rake means. It means that somebody is really thin, really skinny, as thin as a rake. And if you're wondering what a rake is, then have a look at this. Another similar example is as strong as an ox. So what does an ox mean? In this case, it doesn't really matter because we know that this expression means really strong. And again, if you're wondering what an ox is, look at this picture here. Our next expression is as quiet as a mouse. And, I'm guessing you know what a mouse is, but this again just means that somebody is really quiet. And it's worth noting here that we use this about people rather than about places. So you say somebody is as quiet as a mouse. For the next one, I'm going to show you a picture of the thing that we use in the second part of the expression. I want you to try to think what the adjective might be. If you guessed light, then you're correct. And the expression is as light as a feather. Our next expression is as good as. Can you guess what might be here? And it's as good as gold. Interesting. Have a look at this picture and see if you can guess what the next expression is. As cool as a cucumber, which means really relaxed, really cool. You don't get worried about things. As cool as a cucumber. Our next expression is as deaf as a post. So just like as blind as a bat, it doesn't mean that you're actually completely deaf. It just means that you can't hear very well. As deaf as a post. And if you're wondering what a post is, in this meaning, it's this. And the next expression is as something as a sheet. Can you guess what that might be? The answer is as white as a sheet. And very often we use this to describe the way that somebody looks when they've had a shock or they don't feel very well and all of the colour comes from their face. So we will say you look as white as a sheet. And for this last one, there are actually two answers, and that will take us to 10 as expressions for today's lesson. So we need to have two answers to complete this one. So it's as sick as a. Can you figure out what it is? The first answer is as sick as a dog. And the alternative answer is also another animal. So have a look at this picture and see if you know what it is. as sick as a parrot. So we can say as sick as a dog and as sick as a parrot. Okay, so now we have the general meaning of these things, but it's good to put them into practice. So I'm going to give you 9 sentences with a gap in each, and the gap should be the second part of this expression, so that you can see the sentences in context and get a better understanding of what they mean. So let's have a look at the first one. Sentence 1. You don't eat enough. You're as thin as a... What's the answer to this one? Try to remember, it was one of the first ones we had in the lesson. You don't eat enough. You're as thin as a rake. Well done if you got it correct. And number 2. You have to shout. He's as deaf as a... You have to shout. He's as deaf as a post. And that's why you have to shout. The third sentence. After eating that meal, I felt as sick as a... Remember, we can have 2 answers here. After eating that meal, I felt as sick as a dog, or as sick as a parrot. Have you got them all so far? Sentence 4. The old man's hair was as white as a... Do you remember this expression? The old man's hair was as white as a sheet. And number 5. I think he'll be able to lift it. He's as strong as an... I think he'll be able to lift it. He's as strong as an ox. Number 6. He doesn't get angry about things. He's as cool as a... He doesn't get angry about things. He's as cool as a cucumber. And number 7. The kids were as good as when I took care of them. The kids were as good as gold when I took care of them. And a note about this one, actually, good as gold, very often we use this about behaviour and very often about kids' behaviour. So if they were well behaved, we can say they were as good as gold. And number 8, without my glasses, I'm as blind as a... The answer, without my glasses, I'm as blind as a bat. And finally, sentence 9. The bag looked heavy, but it was as light as a... The bag looked heavy, but it was as light as a feather. So how many of them did you get right? Let me know in the comments.